Hi there. In this video, we're going to take an overview of the Canvas Apps Editor. We're doing this in advance of building any apps, so we don't get overwhelmed with how many options we have available to us. So we're going to explore the different menus, we're going to view the formula bar, and we're going to get familiar with the overall Canvas App Editor. We're going into a demonstration shortly, and we'll be covering 5 broad areas. In Area 1, there are some key items such as the environment that we're currently working in. In Area 2, we've got a whole range of options available to us, including bringing in objects into our app. Area 2 has some crossover with Area 3, where we'll see that we've got the option to see the tree view and all the objects that exist within our app. And in Area 4, we can see properties associated with the objects that we are looking at. Finally, at 5, we have the formula bar, which allows us to update the properties of our controls. So let's move across to the demonstration where we review the Canvas app menus. I'm in the Dev Environment tab of the Power Up Program Hub. I need to head to Start Experimenting. And this will take me to make.powerapps.com. If you're an enterprise customer, you'll need to use this URL in order to get to your environments. I'm currently in the environment with my name associated with it. There are other environments to choose from, so make sure you select the correct one. And in order to get to the Power Apps Editor, I'm going to select Create and then Blank App. I'm going to create a blank Canvas app, and I'm going to call this app Demo Canvas Apps Editor. This is a very simple app, but if you wish to follow on with creating and also getting to the menus, select Create. I'm going to disable the Help menu, skip. Now, before we go too much further, I'm going to press Save to make sure that I can get back to this app in the future. Press Save. So let's start running through the options in the purple menu at the top. Firstly, we have the waffle, which is associated with the Microsoft products that we have access to. Then we can see that we're working with Power Apps, and the name of the app is called Demo Canvas Apps Editor. Next, we have the environment selector. That allows us to choose the environment in which we wish to work. And then we have the ability to use Copilot within the context of our Power Apps. For example, we might want it to add a button onto the screen. Once we've supplied our prompt, we would then click the Send option. And we can either keep this or undo it. We have a notifications bell. There are no notifications at this time. And also settings. It allows us to navigate to a range of places such as the Power Platform Admin Center. The plans allow us to understand which license we're currently working under. Session details are useful if we want to raise a support ticket. And Power App settings have a number of options, which includes changing the language in which Power Apps is rendered. You can change the language, however note that it has no effect on the way in which PowerFX is written. I'm going to close out of settings. And we're going to consider the options in the second horizontal menu. Starting on the left-hand side, if we select back, we will move out of Power Apps. And if we haven't saved our changes, then we would lose those changes. We have an undo and redo set of options, as well as cut, copy and paste. However, keyboard shortcuts of Control X, Control C and Control V will perform the same operations. If I select Insert, I get the first opportunity in which to introduce something into my app. From here I can search for the object I require, hit the arrows to see more, and I can drag them onto the screen. At this point, because I've selected on the object, the options available to me have changed. I can now work with the properties of this object. These are available in the top bar, and also if we hit the ellipses to see more options available to us. I could change something like bold, but as you become more comfortable with Power Apps, you'll see there are a number of other options in order to change the properties of your controls. If I select onto the screen, I can see the options that I had before. Add data allows us to connect to either Dataverse data or connect to external data sources. And there are hundreds that you can choose from. If we select on New Screen, we'll be offered a number of screen templates. That includes blank as well, if you wish for full control of the creation and objects contained within the screen. Theming is specific to the classic objects. At this point, I'm going to select a brown standard theme, select on that. And what you'll notice is not only does the screen color change, but also the object that we introduced onto the screen also changes. I'm going to undo that. If I select the 3 ellipses, we'll be offered a number of other options. Background color and background image are fairly self-explanatory. But if we go onto settings, we have a range of options available to us. Under General, we get to provide a description of the app, as well as changing the app icon. Under Display, you get to describe how you want this app to appear on different devices. And the key here is that if you wish to have apps that change according to the size of screen they're on, and we call these responsive apps, then you would need to change the Scale to Fit option and send it to off. If you turn it on, it will scale to fit the size of the screen that it is rendered in. The Copilot settings are a preview option for Copilot Studio. And under Updates, we have some important options. And they range from New, which was options that have been newly introduced, Preview, which are updates that are close to being introduced, and experimental updates, which may change significantly or even be removed. But I want to focus on just one new update, and that is modern controls and themes. If we turn this on, we get a very different experience. I'm going to select Close now. And if I select on Insert, I will now have modern controls available to me. So I'm going to search for date. I'm going to drag in the date picker. This is a modern control. And if we select on Preview, we can see how these controls might operate. I'm going to cancel this. I'm going to select a date here. And you can see there is a more modern experience. I can select an item and I can return out of Preview. If I select back onto the ellipses, I can have another look at the app version history. And if I close out of this, I can save with version notes by selecting the drop down. This is a new version. Select Save. Publish this version. Then I can select the 3 dots, go back to app version history, and it shows me that the app is published with the version notes of this is a new version. And if we were to select see more options for version management, we would have the option to revert this to an earlier version by selecting Restore. Going to close out of this. And the final option under the ellipses is Open. And this effectively allows you to open a completely different app. I'm going to select back out of there. Before we look at the editing options in the horizontal bar on the right hand side, I'm going to remove these 2 date pickers. I'm just going to Shift, select both of them. I can press the delete key on my screen, or in the tree view I could select delete. Press delete on my keyboard. I'm going to insert a button. Move that across. And I'm going to bring in a text input. Finally, I'm going to select on the button that we just brought in. Let's scale up the screen a little. I'm going to return to the menu at the top on the right hand side. Now we can see a properties pane on the right hand side, but if you can't see it, then you just simply need to hit the properties toggle. That will either show or hide the properties, either give you more screen or less screen if you don't require it. As you get used to working with properties of your controls, you may find yourself using the properties on the right hand side, but you may also use the properties at the top. One of the ways to get to the properties at the top is to hit the drop down. It's a perfectly sensible way to get to it. But you can also select on the area here. If you select on that, then the property will appear at the top. And we can see that this text has a property of button. Now we can change it at the top here. I'm going to change this to test. And we can see that it also changes on the right hand side. They're doing exactly the same thing. As we build the app during this module, we'll be using the properties both in the properties pane on the right hand side, as well as using the properties in the formula bar. To the right of the properties icon, you can select a comments option, and these allow you to add comments either to yourself or to a co-author. The next icon on the right hand side is the app checker. And this gives you a very good guide as to the quality of the app that you have put together. And one important feature is that if you make an error in the syntax that you've created, it's going to highlight it here. I'm going to make a change to the text for this button. I'm going to remove the quote here. That's actually going to create an error. And you can see straight away that we have an error. We can also look at this by selecting the drop down, and we can see where this error is. Generally speaking, if you do see an error in your app in this way at any time, you should correct it straight away. I'm going to put the quote back in, and the formula is now correct. The share icon allows you to share your app with someone else in your organization. Preview allows us to test out the app. And there are a number of options under save. You can save it normally. You can save it with version notes, which is a note to your future self about what you've done at that point in time. You can do a save as, which means it's going to be a completely new app. And you can also download a copy. Finally, you have the publish option. And this will both save the app and make the current version live. We've already seen the next horizontal menu. Let's select on an object. And then we can also look at the properties of that object and then adjust them. For example, we could change the height here. We could make it 50. Then it would change the height. Remember, we can change the properties on the right hand side as well. It's in this area that we start to use power effects. So let's have a play around with this. I'm going to insert, and it's going to be a checkbox. Select this, drag it down. I'm going to select back onto my text input. I'm going to select on the placeholder, and it's going to change the property that we're looking at in the formula bar. At the moment, the placeholder is quote, so it's actually not got any data at all. I've now added a formula in. If checkbox canvas 1.checked, Power Platform, otherwise Canvas apps. Let's unpack this then. What is checkbox canvas 1? Well, it's actually this checkbox here. And what we're really saying is if it has been ticked, then present Power Platform, otherwise present the word Canvas apps. And if we move on to the preview, we can see if this works. I'm going to select the checkbox, and we can see that it changes. I'll come back off preview. I'll say don't show this again, and then OK. Now, given that there are two syntaxes that you may come across in Power Effects, depending on your browser settings, you may need to adjust the commas and replace them with semicolons. and it will look as follows. If I'm unsure as to what this formula is doing, I can use the Copilot to help explain this. I can ask Copilot to explain this formula. Select on this. And as this is a good summary, I'm going to select the tick. I'm going to submit the feedback to Microsoft. I'm now going to look at the menu on the left-hand side. The first option is a tree view toggle. Select to turn it off and select to turn it back on again. I can select the plus, that's an insert set of options. And it's almost exactly the same as what we saw before. You can take something and just drag it onto the screen and you have a new object available to you. The next option allows us to add data to our app. You can select add data, and it's a similar experience to what we saw before. You can select data versus tables, or you can select from the many connectors available within the Power Platform. And this time I've searched for SQL related connectors. Under X, we get to see the variables that exist within our app. Let's create a variable. I'm going to select on my button, on select. In order to set the variable, we need to use the set function. Now I've said set GBL my variable to be hello world. I can now refresh the variables. I can see under global variables, I have my variable. I can see it doesn't have a value at the moment. And I can also see where it gets used within my Canvas app. If I select the preview option, press the button, then come out of preview, you can see the value of that variable has now changed to be hello world. And if we want to, we can change the value for our text input to relate to our global variable. I'm going to select on this. I'm going to check in the tree view. Then I can see on the placeholder, we have our if formula. And I'm going to remove that. I'm going to replace it with GBL my variable. You can see that value has changed. That's how we're using it in this app at the moment. The magnifying glass allows us to search for things within our app. And in this case, I've searched for button. And under the ellipses, we have a number of options. The first of which is the themes. And these change the colors of the things within our app. I could change it to an orange theme. And I can apply it to the classic controls. These are the controls that we saw before. I'll select don't show this me again, and then enable. And any new controls that I bring into my app will respect this. I'm going to look at the ellipses again and go on to media. And this allows us to add media to our app. I'm going to add media. I'm going to add stock images. I'm just going to select on an image and then insert. I can now drag this onto my screen. We go back onto the ellipses. We have an option to select Power Automate, and this allows us to run Power Automate cloud flows using Power Apps. If we select on Advanced Tools, we've got two options. We can either monitor the live performance of the app, or we can run some tests. If we select on the cog for settings, we see another way of getting to the settings of our app. And finally, if we close this and then select on the virtual agent, we can have a chatbot experience where we get to ask questions about Power Apps. We have a simple menu at the bottom which allows you to change the size of the objects that you can see on the screen, and this is purely for editing purposes, and it doesn't change their properties. In this video, we saw some of the key aspects of the Canvas app editor, which should mean that when we start building our Canvas apps, we don't get too overwhelmed with all of the options available to us. I'll see you in the next video.